Hi, good afternoon, everybody, for joining us today, and welcome to the mental wellness session by Refex. This is an every month affair, I would say, for us. Conducting a mental health wellness session is an every month affair for us, but this is the first time when we were talking about what should we do or what can be done for the outside world as well. We have decided to make it go live so that people outside of our organization can also benefit from the session. So that is why we have decided to go live on YouTube so that people can benefit from this. And incidentally, this month happens to be men's mental health month as well. So what is there a better better occasion to do this with a therapist who can talk about mental health in general, as well as how men can deal with all their everyday struggles or struggles in general that they usually don't talk to anybody. So that is why we have decided to go live, and I hope and believe you can all get something out of this mental wellness session that we are doing today. So we have here our counseling psychologist, Mr. Suvishesh Bharadwaj.
Hello, Alia.
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Very glad to be here and a part of this.
So we'll be talking about mental wellness and how about you handle your everyday stress and everything. So Vishesh has over 7 years of experience as a mental wellness coach and a performance coach across various organizations, and he also has a private counseling practice. So he'll be the best suited person to go ahead and take this session. We all hoped. So hope you all benefit from this. And let's hear from the man himself. What exactly is stress?
Wow, what a question to start things off. So, um, so when we look at the word stress, right? Let's look at a couple of definitions. So, if you look at the definition according to physics, so stress is tension or some kind of pressure exerted on an object. Okay, and then if you look at literature, stress would be the emphasis you place on a part of a word. But then if you look at psychology, stress is the change experienced when faced with anything. The an internal a change in our internal state due to something happening either outside or inside. So this actually means that every decision, every thought, every action you take, there's some amount of stress that you feel. Okay, so in short, stress is a byproduct of change. So as we all know, change is the only constant, right? So whenever you have change, you have stress. So in this way, I think a good thing to understand is that stress is something you can't escape. Stress, we will experience stress whether we like it or not. Sometimes we don't even know that we're experiencing stress, and that's why it's called the silent killer.
So, how do you classify stress? Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it depends. So I wish I could have a yes or no answer for this, but it depends. So stress, as we discussed, is a byproduct of change, right? So when we experience stress, there's a hormone in our body called cortisol. That hormone is produced, and it's produced by an organ that's near our kidneys. So cortisol, it forces the body cells to produce more glucose. So the body's organs. Okay, so this again makes more energy available to us. The idea is that it'll help you deal with whatever it is we need to deal with. So when we're stressed, the body understands, okay, we need more energy. We have more demand on us. So in this way, it can be very beneficial. So some amount of stress can help us perform better. Just imagine, an exam's coming up, that's an important exam. This makes you focus a little more. You become a little more serious. You're like, okay, instead of simply roaming outside, I'll sit at home and study. At least I hope that happens.
Yeah.
Instead of keeping it for the last day. So that amount of stress can help us perform better, focus our energies, and be more intense
Mm.
with our efforts. So in this way, stress is a good thing, I would say.
That's pretty contradictory to what we have been hearing
Yeah,
from every sources, right?
yeah. So there's more.
Okay.
Okay, so stress is can be a good thing, but prolonged stress is definitely a bad thing. So the same cortisol that we spoke about, that thing that helps us increase the energy demand, right? When that is left in the bloodstream for a long time, that can cause a lot of complications. It can suppress the immune system. It can weaken our bones. It can cause muscle wasting, muscle fatigue. You get this overall feeling of being drained, both mentally and physically. Sometimes we stop thinking. I'm sure that we've all experienced, stressful day. You come back home and you're not even able to think straight. You just feel confused. You're not able to remember. So all these are all effects of being under prolonged stress. That is stress for a long period of time. A good way to understand it is through this model called the general adaptation syndrome. Basically, when we experience stress, we go through three stages. So the first one is alarm reaction, and then the next one would be resistance, and the final one is exhaustion. So that is, you understand, okay, there is something that requires your attention. You start to feel that amount of stress, but your performance is also good. Let's take the example of the exam.
Yeah.
So there's an exam coming up. I know there's an exam coming up, so I sit with my books, and in the back of my mind I think, okay, I have to do well. Okay, so that's an alarm reaction, right? Then it moves into a state where I'm doing my best to study. It's difficult, it's taxing on my system, but I'm staying awake, I'm doing all this thing to study and all. So now I enter the next stage. Then I enter a stage where the more time I spend, the less I'm getting out of it. So I'm sitting, I'm without sleeping, I'm sitting with my book and studying, but my mind just goes blank in the exam. Now I'm in a state of exhaustion, and I'm doing more damage than good at this stage.
Okay.
So once you reach that stage, you're very close to what we call burnout, and that's one of the biggest, I'd say, dangers of being exposed to stress. Once we reach burnout, which is total physical and mental exhaustion, like your body's resources are completely drained, we can fall sick. We can definitely not trust ourselves to make good decisions at that point. We feel completely helpless. We could even enter a lot of mental health issues, depression, anxiety issues, lots of things. So once you reach burnout, then you need to take some time off to recover from that.
Okay.
So in this way, stress is something that we need to be very conscious of. When we regulate it properly, it's good, but then you leave it unregulated and it definitely becomes bad.
Okay, I get that. So, do you think is there any ways or techniques or any kind of simple activities that you can engage yourself that can help me or anybody disconnect from everyday stresses? Like, because we all go through stress on a regular basis.
Right.
Could be a smaller thing or a very huge thing. But how do you suggest, or do you have any suggestions, techniques or activities?
Absolutely. So one thing that we can do, and I would say by far the most beneficial thing for quick relief from stress is breathing. This is something we do all the time. We don't even think about
Yes.
it, right? If I have to tell you, hey, you need to remember to breathe, right?
Yeah, that would be a weird
Yeah,
thing to hear and
yeah,
say.
because if we forget to breathe and we actually don't breathe, we would die. We need oxygen, right? But what I'm talking about when I say breathing is regulating the breath. So controlling our breathing. A simple way to think about it is slowing down. So you take in a normal breath. It doesn't have to be too deep, but just be conscious about it. So I would breathe in, and then as I breathe out, I breathe out through my mouth, like gently blow the air out. And rather than focus on deep breathing, I would focus on slow breathing. So I try to slow things down as much as possible.
Okay.
You could also keep your hand to hear your heartbeat, and you'll feel it beating fast, right? This happens when we're stressed, and you slow it down like that, right? Slowly. So this is, I'd say, something that doesn't take much effort, but it has a big reward. So this is something we can all do at our desks.
Okay.
We may feel a bit conscious if we're all standing there like this, but trust me, it really works. And we can find our own ways. Just remember, the principle is slowing things down. So the slower the exhale, the signal that it sends to the body is relax, slow down, right? If we were to breathe in very shallow, like, what happens is our heartbeat starts to quicken up, and our blood pressure goes up, and we feel more stressed. It becomes difficult to think. So instead, slowing things down makes a big difference.
Okay, sure.
So that's one.
Okay.
Then we could go on to setting boundaries. So as we all have work timings, and I'm sure you have your work timing, and once that's done, you pack up and you go home. But mentally, we may not fully disconnect,
Okay.
right? I may be thinking, you may have some work that you're left pending, and you may go home, and this happens to me as well. There may be a lot of work that I'll be thinking of constantly. I may face a problem either in my personal life or professional life, and it'll be difficult to stop thinking about it, because we always want to solve problems. When we're faced with a problem, we it disturbs us if it's just left like that. But here's where we need to consciously set a boundary and understand our work life is separate. And in our work life, when in our working hours, we give our best, and then there should be a point of disconnection. So this doesn't mean we're going to completely wash our hands off everything, but we're going to make sure that we don't carry things home with us. So sometimes we may need to put in some extra hours at work to solve something important.
Yeah.
That's fine. Just as long as we're clear about, okay, once this is done, I'm off and I'm switching off my work mode, because we'll be carrying that back to
Yeah.
our families,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
that's another problem altogether. So in a way, this is the essence of work-life balance as well. Setting proper boundaries, making sure that we know in our own minds, okay, when does work end, when does me, like myself, when do I begin,
Yeah.
or continue rather. Once you get back home, another thing is often, maybe sitting on the bed and working. That's also not a good idea, because your bed is supposed to be a place where you can relax,
Okay.
be a bit vulnerable, sleep, do all these things, right? You don't want to carry something that activates you or makes you feel stressed. You don't want to carry that into your bedroom, into your private space. So this is another thing that I would say about setting boundaries.
Okay.
Then when it comes to emotions, because stress brings up a lot of emotions, right? Could be fear, it sometimes could even be irritation, anger, all these things. Compartmentalizing emotions helps. This is a good short-term strategy. We have to be very, very careful
Careful.
with it. Yeah. So when you compartmentalize something, you're basically putting it aside so you can deal with it later. But what we do, or the danger with this, is just brushing it under the carpet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what we have to be careful about, especially when talking with men's mental health, right? As a guy myself, I'm sure that we're all guilty of this, where we just brush it under the carpet and we say, I'll deal with it later. It may not be a conscious decision, it could happen automatically as well. um, so that's something we have to be careful about. Compartmentalizing is not the same as brushing things under the carpet.
Okay.
It's putting it aside for a more appropriate time, which could be 1 hour later. Maybe I'm at my work, at my desk, and my break comes up in a few minutes, and I'm like, okay, I'll think about this then. Right now, I'll focus on the problem at hand. So that's another excellent way of tackling this.
Yes.
So this brings us to another thing, which is planning. Planning your day will really help. So knowing
Okay.
when each activity ends,
Okay.
that would help, especially when we're juggling both work and our personal
Personal
life.
life. Yeah.
So this way we know that, okay, it's not ambiguous. I know when I'm going to go for which activity, and this gives us a good outline. So stress often increases when there's an element of unpredictability,
Okay.
and that can bring about anxiety as well, which is something that is like an amplified version of stress,
Okay.
which we all have. It's more like an inbuilt danger sensation that we have, which gets turned on when we have something unknown, like we have this what if, and we don't have the answer to that what if
Yes,
situation,
yes,
right?
yeah.
So what if I study for the exam but I fail, and
Happens to the best of us.
yeah, in fact, it happens almost always to the best of us,
Yes.
right? So those of us who have a lot of responsibility, we must be facing this a lot in our daily lives. So this is it for like the quick techniques and tips that you could try. To recap, it would be breathing, it would be setting boundaries, and planning, compartmentalization as well.
Okay. So these techniques work for a short term stress or coping with short term stress.
Yes.
But do you think we can go on with these short term techniques, or do we need to, you know, consider what are the long term
Yeah.
effects of stress?
Yes, that's a great question, and I think that brings us to this word, which is very popular these days, but extremely important, which is resilience.
Okay.
So resilience is not a innate, inborn quality; it's more of a skill that we can build. So, like we started with talking about stress, the definition, and all that. Right? So, stress is nothing but tension that could be applied to a physical object, could be applied to us also psychologically. Some kind of mental pressure, like that. We can describe it in different ways, but we all feel it. We know how it feels. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from that feeling.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So it's a skill which we can develop, and we develop it by looking to our let's say biological or You could even say like the natural gifts that we're given. So that would be things like our lifestyle,
Okay.
our body, first of all. A healthier body will definitely help to build a healthier mind. It's
Okay.
very hard to kind of deal with stress when we're falling sick all the time, because stress itself can make us fall sick.
Yes. Yes.
So the very first thing I would say to be more resilient is a healthier lifestyle.
Okay.
So when I say lifestyle, I basically mean sleep, eating, and exercise, activity
Okay.
level.
Okay.
Exercise doesn't mean the gym workout,
Okay.
just mean activity level.
Okay.
The more amount of time we spend moving up and down, that really helps a lot.
Okay.
So coming to the sleep part, this is the only time in the day rather than that we can rest and recover. Our organs, our cells,
Yes.
tissues, mind, everything gets to slow down a little bit and recover.
Yes.
So if we deny our body this time, it will have a lot of effects. And
Okay.
stress, being more stressed or being finding it unable to handle more stress, that's one of them,
Okay.
one of the many effects. So building a good sleep routine is a good place to start.
Okay.
Then would be looking at a good diet. So when I say good diet, I mean some of the basics, nothing specific, no specific diet, but just our eating habits, making sure we have timely meals. We often at work, we often skip breaks or lunchtime to work, so we go hungry for long periods of time. This puts the body under enormous stress as well. It's very difficult. There's this word hangry, where you
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
angry and
Hungry.
hungry.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's just one of many things that could happen, if we don't have timely food. Similarly, the quality of the food also matters.
Okay.
There's a lot of food, a lot of processed food, and a lot of growing evidence also to show that a lot of processed food can make us feel worse,
Okay.
because our gut also produces a lot of the mood hormone serotonin,
Yes. Okay.
and that's a discussion for another time. But basically, what we put inside ourselves also matters a lot.
Matters. Yes.
Yeah. Then comes to the activity, so just moving around, that could help us more with these feel good hormones.
Okay.
Right. So cortisol places more demand on the body, can contribute to us feeling more exhausted. Moving around would help us with endorphins.
Okay.
And these are natural painkillers. We feel more calm, relaxed. We feel better. So just a quick walk, 10 minutes walk, and all. After that, we feel really good. You may be tired, but at least you feel like you've done something, you've accomplished something.
Okay.
So that's a great resource we can use. Making
Okay.
sure that in your breaks, rather than sitting at your desk, you can just walk around. If you feel overwhelmed, take a quick walk, just reset, relax. And sometimes if you don't have time, if you don't have time for a 45-minute break, 10-minute break, you can make it a matter of seconds.
Okay.
I
Okay.
call these micro breaks. So you can consider them less than a minute. You can just set your timer or stopwatch on the phone and walk from one end of the office to the other
Other
of the
hand.
bay.
Okay.
If you're at work, if you're at home, you can do it like from one end of the home to the other. A lot of us work from home, so you shouldn't take that lightly. You should still treat it like you're at the office. Better to stand down than when you can.
Yes.
And just if you implement these small really quick solutions that are low effort, high return, we can definitely help to build a more resilient lifestyle.
Okay. You have mentioned about overwhelmingness. So I just want to ask you, what am I supposed to do, or what one should or one is supposed to do when we get this overwhelming level of stress? And can it go to that overwhelming level of stress?
This brings us to the most important point that this is what we were all coming to,
Okay.
which is and this is something again, before we get to the answer, this is something that I feel is it's very important for all of us. And this being Men's Mental Health Month as well, it's a point that we really should emphasize a lot, which is when faced with overwhelming odds, we also need to learn to seek help.
Mm-hmm.
We're not alone. That's the first thing. We have others around us, and we
Okay.
have to understand that it's perfectly okay not to be okay, and also to seek help, to reach
Okay.
out to those around us. So we try, like the techniques we spoke about. That's all about dealing with stress by ourselves, which is well and good. But if you look at it, we don't spend most of the day just by ourselves.
Yes.
Right now, I'm surrounded by people, I'm with you, and then a lot of our viewers, they'll be at home or at work, surrounded by people for
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
And if you're on the road, you're surrounded by strangers as well, so
Yes.
there's someone always nearby. And it's really a bad idea to think that we should handle all these things by ourselves and just not share anything with anyone. So learning to seek help is an extremely important skill, I would say. It's more,
Okay.
it's not something like, okay, we are becoming dependent on someone, or we're taking a shortcut. Rather, it's making sure that we watch out for ourselves. We're proactive about our own mental health,
Okay.
because mental health and especially stress, this is one, it has caused up to, like, let's say, maybe a huge drop in productivity. And India especially registers at least, I think 86% of the Indian workforce report severe job stress.
Okay.
And
That's a staggering number.
yeah, yeah, compared to a worldwide average of 83 or 84.
Okay.
So, in fact, we have our workforce, Indian workforce, is under more stress,
Okay.
but also one of the workforces that reports it the least. So, this is something we need
Okay.
to learn. So, making use of our support system. So, when I say support system, I basically mean those we trust, the people around us, friends, family, colleagues as well. Relying on them is a very important thing as well. It's not, again, it's not dependence. And also, this doesn't mean we need to go share every single detail, personal detail. It could just be, telling a colleague, telling a friend that, hey, I'm not feeling too good today, there's few things on my mind. And just having someone listen to you, that's an extremely important skill. So that's something, definitely, that we have to consider when faced with these overwhelming odds.
Okay. But is it only enough to talk to friends and family? That itself is be over with, we'll be fine, or we can handle with only friends and family support, or do you suggest anything else, or
I wish it were that simple. But there are times, that I'm sure we've all faced them. There are times when speaking with friends and family is just not enough, or it may not be possible for us as well.
okay.
Sometimes there's so much baggage or so much going on between the friends and family themselves that we're not able to approach them.
Yeah.
Or we may feel, why should I burden them? Different. Each of us, we have different challenges.
Yes.
We feel different things. So here is when we have to consider approaching a professional, that is, a licensed mental health specialist, a counselor, someone trained in, to understand human behavior, human emotions, help with mental health issues, these things, right?
Okay.
So having someone listen to us, that's good. But
Yes.
we have two major factors to consider when seeking professional help. One is the training. So, a mental health professional is someone with experience. They've gone through training. They understand the various things. When we face some odds, when we face personal crisis, it can often feel like it's very unique. This happens only to me. No one else will understand what I'm going through. But we have to understand that there are people who have gone through something similar, if not the exact same thing, and it has been studied. And there are people ready to help with
Help
such
with
things
that.
as well.
Yeah.
So basically, their job is to do their best to understand,
Uh-huh.
empathize, and help us with that situation. The second thing is the environment. So a
Okay.
counseling environment is a safe, non-judgmental environment
Mm-hmm.
where both the counselor and the counselee, the person, the client who comes
Yes.
for that, they are able to collaboratively work towards sorting out what's happening, making sense of it, and
Okay.
finding a solution that best fits the client.
Uh-huh.
So here, the solution would not be given by the counselor. So no
Okay.
one can give the solution to, like, if I'm facing a problem, I wouldn't be able to get the solution from someone else.
Yes.
The solution would exist when I find it,
Okay.
but the counselor or mental health specialist will help the person find that. So
Okay.
I would look at it as an advantage. In life, it's best
It
to
sounds
take.
like a treasure and you do with only yourself.
Yeah, yeah, and it could take a long time. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it could take years if you're just
Okay.
sitting. Imagine, like you said, a treasure hunt.
Yeah.
You're in a big room and it's completely dark, and
Yeah.
you have a torch,
Uh-huh.
with a limited battery life,
Okay.
and you have to search, right?
Yes.
Wouldn't you find it useful if someone was to
That's
come with
true.
like
Yeah.
this big spotlight? It
Yes.
would really help,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So, I think looking at it that way is also useful.
Helpful. Yeah.
Another way to look at it is, so we know exactly what to do when we don't feel well,
Uh-huh.
right? Let's say, you wake up one day with a fever,
Uh-huh.
and what do you normally do if you wake up with a fever?
I'll go for a tablet.
Yeah, yeah. So we would do that. We go for Dolo, whatever
Or
tablet.
tablets. Yeah.
We'll take some rest, eat something. Just try to,
Rest.
yeah, try
Mm-hmm.
to recover.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't recover, what do you do after that?
Go to a doctor,
Go to a
obviously.
doctor. Yeah, yeah. So it's obvious, right? Now imagine the same scenario, but instead of fever, we have let's say feeling overwhelmed, feeling a bit low, having some low mood, lack of interest in your activities, inability to concentrate, mood swings, feeling irritable, feeling sad, all these things, right? If we put them together, um, why should we treat that any different than fever?
Yeah, makes sense.
So we could try making sense of it, talking to someone. If that's still not helping, and this is going on for a week, 3 days, 4 days, it makes sense to go to someone who can help us with it, some professional, that is.
Okay.
So because they are trained to help us with this, just like the doctor is trained to help us with the fever or whatever medical issue we're going through.
Okay.
So that it comes down to that, basically.
Okay. So you have given us a lot today, and we'll ask the viewers if they have any questions to the psychologist, so that I hope the comment sections are open. So anybody watching can post their questions so that he'll be taking questions now. We'll wait for some minutes for some questions from anybody watching.
Sure. In the meantime, there's another thing that especially in an organizational context, something very important to think about when talking about mental health is what happens when we ignore the mental
Okay.
health concerns.
Okay.
So I often find that I appreciate the importance of something when I don't have it. This, I think, this human nature, right?
Okay.
So I may take something for granted, but when I don't have it, only then I understand.
Okay.
I may take my leg for granted, but when I don't have my leg, I understand how difficult life is,
Yes.
right? So similar, this can be applied to everything else.
Okay.
So when we take mental health, only when our mental health starts to get unbalanced, dysfunctional, or let's say downright bad, or poor, only then we start to appreciate how important it is and how much we should safeguard it.
Okay.
So this again is quite concerning because here now we're going to move into the context of red flags. So
Okay.
red flags are nothing but these signs and indicators that someone is approaching what we call a risk zone.
Okay.
So when it comes to mental health issues, when people ignore it for a long period of time,
Yeah.
ultimately it ends at a place which is what we say a suicidal risk zone.
Okay.
It can.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
these are some things to generally look out for, some red flags. I
Mhm.
thought it would be good to talk about that and share that.
Mhm.
Right? So some of the red flags to watch out for and look out for, because we can see this in those around us, and we could help them in that situation as well.
Okay.
So it would be. I understand it's very difficult to reach out for help. Many times it's difficult to make ourselves vulnerable, go and
Yes.
know who to trust, especially if we've been betrayed in the past or we feel like we were let down. So here's what you can do for your fellow colleagues, family, friends, and all that. So one way is to spot someone who's having a tough time and to reach out to them and help them.
Mhm.
So some of the common red flags are increased absenteeism,
Okay.
then feelings of worthlessness and helplessness. So a lot of unplanned leaves. So
Okay.
this is definitely a big red flag. So
Okay.
when we see that happening, I think we naturally would feel like, okay, what's going on? Suddenly this person seems to be taking a lot of
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah.
So it could be many reasons, but it's worth checking out.
Yes. Yeah.
Then we could also go into withdrawal. So someone who's normally very chatty, likes to talk to everyone, suddenly they sit by themselves, they don't want to talk to anyone. So what to do then, right?
Yeah.
So we have a lot of questions. Do we reach out to them and what if they say it's not none of your business, go away, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes we have to take that risk. There's no clear answer, but it's important to take all these things under consideration.
Consideration. Yeah.
So
There are no questions, I guess. Okay.
do you have a specific question?
I think we have covered everything that
Absolutely.
I have as a question. I have as questions. So yeah, yes, that is a question. Does sleep helps for mental stress?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say if nothing else, that would be something to focus on. Like if we're unwilling to get to the other stages yet,
Okay.
working on your sleep is one of the best things you can do. right? So if we it's basic biology, right? So when you sleep, your body is at rest, it gets to recover and all that, right? Now when we don't sleep, when we stay awake for a long time, um, there is a part of the brain called the habenula,
Okay.
which is nothing but the disappointment nucleus. So there are areas of the brain, when we
Okay.
stimulate them, you feel positive emotion, you feel excitement, pleasure, all that.
Okay.
This particular area, when that is stimulated, you feel disappointment, you feel low.
Okay.
That's one thing. In addition, you start feeling hungry, you have all these cravings because of another hormone called
Okay.
ghrelin. This All this happens when we have improper sleep. So
Okay.
generally, they say an essential zone in which we need to have deep sleep is 2 a.m. to 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're sitting, Netflix, Amazon
Yeah.
Prime, chatting with some friend, or just staying up, it's extremely difficult to expect that we'll be feeling our 100% the next day.
Next day. Okay.
And just remember, like 3 consecutive days of improper sleep is equal to being slightly inebriated.
Okay.
Like our blood alcohol level goes up even if we don't drink.
Oh.
So I'm sure we all have some level of alcohol in our blood. It's
Okay.
norm.
Okay.
So you start to feel like that as well. Your reflexes get bad. This again, especially if you drive to office, it's very dangerous.
Yeah.
We could lose our attention and all that
Mm-hmm.
on the
Mm-hmm.
road, and that's extremely dangerous. So sleep plays such an important role, and it's an essential tool that we good sleep is an essential tool that we should have for good mental and physical health.
Okay. So
um,
apparently sleep does help.
yes, yes, absolutely. Sleep, I think, will play a very good role. So a quick tip for anyone struggling with sleep, like having improper sleep routine, is to control their light exposure. So early in the morning, get more light. This could be sunlight. Sunlight is the best. Generally, before 8 a.m., it's preferable to have that sunlight exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Don't stare directly at the sun. That's not what I mean.
Okay.
But like expose yourself to a bright area.
Okay.
And there is something like a cell that's in the eye, which is like a light. It's like a switch, an on switch. When that's switched on, our biorhythm is happens smoothly. We
Okay.
feel sleepy naturally in the night,
Okay.
and we go off to sleep. It's all fine.
Okay.
But when that thing is not properly stimulated or switched on, we don't feel sleepy properly,
Okay.
or we feel sleepy during the day. All
Okay.
this happens. So during the night, it's better to be as dark as possible.
Okay.
So once it's nighttime, make sure that in your house you don't have very bright lights. You reduce your screen exposure. In our work, we work with computers a lot,
Computers.
so we already have a lot of screen time.
Mm-hmm.
So best thing to do is to just reduce the screen exposure, make everything as dark as possible, and go off to sleep.
Any quick exercise for relief from stress or anxiety attack?
Anxiety attack. Okay. So these are two related but also different things. So an
Things.
anxiety attack, I think if you face anxiety attacks regularly, it's definitely time to consult a professional. Okay. Now, stress, everyday stress, that feeling of feeling overwhelmed, right? A quick exercise for relief would be breathing. We want to slow things down, right? So you feel your heartbeat
Mm-hmm.
going,
Mm-hmm.
right? Think of filling a balloon, right? So imagine I have a balloon in my hand, and I just take it, and I try to fill it. If
Okay.
you have a balloon, you can actually do it. It'd be a fun exercise. You can actually try filling a balloon. Otherwise, just imagine you're trying to fill the balloon and try to pump out as much air as possible. Try to completely empty your lungs.
Okay.
By the end, you'll have this like feeling of calm,
Okay.
right? And that will help us. That will slow down the thinking. Sometimes the thinking just speeds things up.
Your concentration is diverted to breathing.
Yeah,
That
that's
is
the
how it
idea.
works.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very
That's
difficult to
interesting.
yeah, it's very difficult to control the mind with the mind. So
Yeah.
that's the famous saying, right? Don't think of a white elephant.
Yeah.
So now,
I am thinking of a white
yeah,
element. Yes.
so it's tough. So this breathing exercise is, I think, that's, I think, the simplest way.
Uh-huh.
And there are tons of other breathing exercise. You have abdominal breathing. If you google it, you'll have several different tips.
Okay.
But this one I find to be very simple, easy to understand, not meant, you don't have it's not complicated.
Mhm.
And taking a quick walk to clear your mind is also very useful.
Okay. So we have a next question. How can I always control tension and unnecessary thoughts? Because of over tension, I feel stress sometimes.
Okay, unnecessary thoughts. Okay,
Thoughts.
we also call these intrusive thoughts because they come and like invade our space. You know, we're
Mm-hmm.
trying to do something else, and then that thought keeps coming. So
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like this. If you want to imagine, it's almost like this troublesome like person or something standing next to me and constantly touching my shoulder and disturbing me.
Okay.
Right. So if you want to deal with that, one quick way is to remove it from here and put it somewhere else.
Okay.
So that would be writing it down. So
Okay.
exactly the way the thought occurs in your head, these unnecessary thoughts, write them down. Okay.
Okay.
Sometimes we fear that by doing that we may give it more importance or
Okay.
it may come true.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to happen. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, the reason why they're circling in our head again and again is because there's something about them that disturbs us, which and we don't want,
Okay.
but the brain has identified that as important because we're giving it that unnecessary importance,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's going to keep coming back again as in a loop in our brain. The more you try
Okay.
to push it away, the more it's going to keep coming back.
Okay.
So one thing I would suggest is to quickly write them down and then analyze. If it's a thought that related to some decision, then weigh the pros and cons. Try to become objective about it.
Mm-hmm.
But first, make sure that you're in a healthy emotional space. If
Okay.
you feel emotional or if you're stressed, it's better not to make a decision in that time.
Okay.
The best thing is to write down the thought, put it on paper, and then examine it so you can
Okay.
actually challenge it and see is this true. Okay. And
Okay.
separate the emotion from the thought as much as possible.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we are still waiting for questions. Okay. I don't see any.
But so far, great questions. I think these capture it very well.
Yeah.
Sleep and then like quick exercise, which I would say would be breathing,
Yeah.
and then finding ways to control these intrusive thoughts.
Okay. Yes. Those will be takeaways. Yes. And also
Okay.
the tip on sleeping.
Sleeping, yes, yes, yeah. There is another thing. This I for some reason this seems to calm the brain down. I don't know
Okay.
why, and that is looking side to side.
Okay.
So just looking like left to right, not up and down, but looking left to right is said to generally make us feel a little more calm and stable.
Okay.
There could be many. I am not sure about the reason why,
Uh-huh.
but in brain studies they said that it helps.
Okay.
So just scanning from left to right, making the eyes move back and forth like that, that seems to reduce the stress response.
Okay. Let's see how I'm going to see a lot of people do that in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
future.
Try it out and let me know if it works.
Yeah, for sure. So I think we have, yes. So I think we have come to the end of our session, and we would like to thank Suvishesh for coming here and taking this YouTube live actually.
My
So
pleasure.
thank you for joining
Thank
us
you so
today,
much.
and thank you everybody for joining us today. Would you like to have a few words or?
Absolutely. So I think some one of the main takeaways is as you mentioned, right? It's okay to seek help, and it's also important to learn to do that and invest in your own body and your mind. A healthy lifestyle, making sure that you surround yourself with good people, the people you trust, connect with them, connect with your social circle,
Mhm.
stay active, and believe in yourself. There's very little that you will not be able to overcome if you put your mind to it.
Mhm. So not put your mind to it.
No, if you put your mind to it, as in if you put your mind to overcoming it,
Okay.
and you will overcome it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yes. Thank you guys for joining us today. We'll meet in a different time, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.